Is Africa finally waking up? It's a question whispered in diplomatic halls, debated in corporate boardrooms, and asked by millions who've watched this continent rise, only to be pushed down again. But today, something feels different, because in the heart of West Africa, a quiet storm has begun to rumble, and its epicenter is Guinea. For a while now, Guinea has been the silent one. While Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger grabbed headlines with bold speeches and anti-colonial moves, Guinea stayed in the background. No fiery declarations, no broken alliances, just silence. Calculated, eerie silence. At the helm is Colonel Mamady Doumbouya, a man who took power in a military coup, yet never played the role of the revolutionary. Not like Ibrahim Traoré, not until now, because recently that silence shattered. With one sweeping decision, Doumbouya revoked the licenses of 51 foreign mining companies. No negotiations, no compromises, just a cold, hard line drawn in the sand. The message? Guinea's resources are no longer up for grabs. For decades, foreign corporations carved into Guinea's earth, mining its gold, its bauxite, its soul. Billions made, communities left behind, and like many African nations, Guinea watched its riches flow out, while its people remained in poverty. But now, Doumbouya is saying no more. Is it a genuine act of patriotism? A bold step to reclaim what belongs to the nation? Or is there something else, something darker behind this sudden shift? Some call it nationalism, others call it vengeance. But one thing is certain, this is not just about Guinea. This is about Africa's awakening. Because if Guinea is taking back its minds today, who's next? And more importantly, how will the West respond now that their grip on African wealth is starting to slip? This isn't just a story about one country. This is the story of a continent that's been plundered for centuries, finally saying enough. And what happens next could change everything. Guinea, a small West African nation with a population of just over 14 million people. But beneath its soil lies a secret the world cannot ignore. It's a land rich in treasures, gold, diamonds, graphite, and iron ore. But there's one resource that places Guinea at the center of a global race: bauxite. Buried deep within Guinea's red earth are the largest bauxite reserves on the planet, an estimated 7.4 billion metric tons. That's not just big, it's colossal. But it doesn't stop there. Guinea isn't just sitting on the world's biggest supply, it's also the second largest producer of bauxite, providing nearly 20% of global exports. So why does this matter? Because bauxite is the beating heart of aluminum, and aluminum is everywhere. From smartphones to skyscrapers, from airplanes to electric cars, it powers the modern world. And if you control the bauxite, you control the chain. Guinea may not make global headlines every day, but the truth is, the world needs Guinea far more than Guinea needs the world. The question now is, what will Guinea do with that power? Guinea is rich, unbelievably rich. Bauxite, gold, diamonds, graphite, iron ore, the country has it all. And yet, like many African nations, it has struggled to benefit from its own natural wealth. Despite holding the world's largest bauxite reserves, Guinea's mining sector has long been dominated by foreign corporations, companies that extract billions in resources while leaving behind poverty and broken promises. But now, something big has happened. In a stunning move, Guinea's military leader, Colonel Mamady Doumbouya, has revoked over 51 mining licenses. The decision affects key concessions across 5 major minerals, including bauxite and gold, granted between 2005 and 2023. The announcement came via a national broadcast. Information Minister Fana Suma delivered the news with chilling clarity. These concessions have been returned to the state, free of charge. Why? According to Guinean authorities, the companies failed to meet their development obligations. They were supposed to invest in the country, build hospitals, schools, create jobs, protect the land, but they didn't. And now, the game has changed. This isn't just a crackdown, it's a message. Guinea is done being exploited. The only question is, how will the world respond? In Guinea, the story is all too familiar. Foreign companies come in, make promises, schools, hospitals, jobs, but once the deals are signed, those promises vanish. And it's not just Guinea. Across Africa, research shows a disturbing pattern. Many of these foreign corporations aren't here to build, they're here to extract, to exploit, to take as much as they can, while giving back as little as possible. They take advantage of weak regulatory systems, dodge taxes, and avoid paying royalties. In Mali, for example, Barrick Gold, a mining giant that's operated there for over a decade, has reportedly refused to pay taxes and royalties since 2021, owing the government nearly $500 million. But the damage isn't just economic, it's environmental. In Nigeria's oil-rich Niger Delta, entire communities have watched their rivers turn toxic, their lands poisoned by oil spills. Companies like Shell and Chevron have been accused of turning fertile ground into dead soil, leaving behind sickness, poverty, and rage. This isn't an isolated issue. This is the African experience. And now, the continent is beginning to push back. In Guinea, the promises were grand. Emirates Global Aluminum, one of the biggest names in the global bauxite industry, pledged to do what so many before them had refused: build an aluminum refinery on Guinean soil. It was supposed to be a game changer. Instead of exporting raw bauxite, Guinea would finally process its own resources, add value at home, and create real jobs for its people. But years later, that refinery still doesn't exist. The deadlines keep shifting, the excuses keep coming, and the people of Guinea are left waiting for a future that never seems to arrive. At this point, the message is clear. They never intended to build it. And this is why we say the West, and even countries like China, want Africa locked into one role: the eternal supplier of raw materials. Because as long as Africa exports raw resources and imports finished goods, it remains at the mercy of global markets. It cannot set the price of its own wealth. It cannot build true independence. And that's exactly how the system was designed to work. Raw materials from Africa are cheap, often far cheaper than those sourced elsewhere. That's why the world keeps coming back. Mining companies line up not to invest in Africa's future, but to extract its present. But for how long? How long will Africa allow others to dictate its value? How long will it remain the engine, while someone else drives the car? But this time, Guinea isn't just watching, it's acting. In 2023, under the leadership of Colonel Mamady Doumbouya, Guinea made a bold move. It rewrote its mining code. A new framework designed to ensure that Guinea no longer remains just a supplier of raw materials, but a nation that adds value before anything leaves its soil. One of the key mandates? Local processing. If you want Guinea's gold bauxite or iron, you process it here. You invest here. You build with us, not just from us. But as expected, many companies ignored the new rules. Just like in Mali, they chose profit over partnership. So Guinea struck back with surgical precision. Over 51 mining licenses were revoked, gone, erased. A cleanup operation aimed at restoring order and reclaiming control over the country's most valuable assets. At first glance, this sounded like a seismic shift in the global resource game. But here's where it gets interesting. According to some analysts, the companies affected weren't the giants. In fact, many were what they called inconsequential players. Most held exploration permits, not production licenses. They were still in the early stages, searching, sampling, speculating. In other words, Guinea didn't just throw a punch, it sent a warning shot. Production hasn't stopped. Bauxite exports haven't slowed. But the message is clear: comply or be cut off. For the first time in decades, a resource-rich African nation isn't just reacting, it's setting the rules, and the world is watching. To put it plainly, the 51 companies that lost their licenses, they weren't the big players. They weren't the giants of Guinea's mining industry. And that's led some to speculate, was this move carefully calculated? A strategic cleanup targeting small-time operators, while steering clear of major producers that power Guinea's economy? Some even ask, is the government afraid of the big companies? But here's the truth. No, they're not. Take Emirates Global Aluminium, or EGA, for example. One of the largest mining entities in Guinea, backed by Abu Dhabi's Mubadala and the Investment Corporation of Dubai, EGA is no minor player. Through its subsidiary, Guinea Alumina Corporation, it controls a massive concession, 690 square kilometers, holding an estimated 400 million tons of bauxite. Each year, EGA extracts roughly 12 million tons from Guinea's soil. That's not just impressive, it's critical. EGA alone contributes a huge portion of Guinea's total bauxite output. So no, the Guinean authorities aren't scared, but they are strategic. They know that shaking the foundations too hard, too fast, could cause economic blowback. But by starting with the smaller licenses, many of them inactive, they're sending a powerful message without jeopardizing national exports. Guinea is making a move, but it's playing the long game. Something big is happening in Guinea. The government is now targeting one of the giants, Emirates Global Aluminium. Tensions began in 2023, right after Guinea updated its mining code. By October, things escalated. The government suspended EGA's mining and export operations. The reason? Disputes over customs duties. The result was immediate. EGA's exports dropped from 14 million tons in 2022 to just 10.8 million in 2024. And the world felt it. Aluminum prices in London jumped more than 2%, a direct response to the supply shock. It proved just how vital Guinea's bauxite really is. Publicly, EGA says it's working on a solution. They want to resume operations. But behind the scenes, the story is different. According to a senior Guinean official, the license is already revoked. It just hasn't been announced. If confirmed, the consequences will be massive. For EGA, for Guinea, for the global aluminum market, because this isn't just a mining dispute, it's a power shift, and the world is watching. So why hasn't Guinea officially revoked EGA's license? In our opinion, it's a strategic move. The government may be using it as leverage, a powerful negotiating tool. EGA has invested heavily in Guinea. Losing that license would be a major blow. So now, the message is clear: comply or risk everything. And this tactic, it's not new. In 2023, Mali played the same game. After updating its mining code, most foreign companies refused to follow the new rules. That's when Colonel Assimi Goïta stepped in, with force. He made an example. He went after the big names, Barrick Gold, and an Australian mining company. Officials were arrested, accused of tax evasion and unpaid royalties. At first, the companies pushed back. They ran to the media. They tried to paint Mali's government as anti-business. They warned it would scare investors away. But Assimi didn't blink. He stood firm, demanded full payment. Eventually, the pressure worked. The Australian company agreed to pay half of what it owed immediately, the rest over the next few months. Only then were the detained officials released. It wasn't just a crackdown, it was a message. Africa is done begging, now it's demanding. This proves one thing: Africa will never fully benefit from its resources until it makes bold decisions. But then the question comes, why do African countries still rely on foreign companies to exploit their own wealth? Why can't Africans mine it themselves? The answer isn't simple, but it's real. Mining is expensive, very expensive. It takes millions of dollars just to begin. And sometimes, after years of digging, you find nothing, just dust. That's time, effort, and money gone. Most African governments simply can't afford to take that kind of risk. Not when schools, hospitals, and roads are still underdeveloped. And it's not just about money, it's also about technical expertise. Mining at scale requires advanced machinery, geologists, engineers, years of training and experience. Most African nations didn't develop these skills under colonial rule. Why? Because the West controlled everything. They mined the gold, the oil, the uranium, using Africans as cheap labor, never teaching them how to run the operations themselves. Even today, it's not just Africa. In many Western countries, mining is still handled by private companies, not the state. That said, Africa isn't empty-handed. In places like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Ghana, thousands of artisanal miners dig for gold every day, but they work with basic tools, limited funding, no machines. They have the will, but not the means. And for resources like oil or uranium, the gap is even wider. The know-how just isn't there, yet. And that's the legacy of colonialism, a system designed to extract wealth without ever transferring power. For decades, top managerial roles and technical positions in African mining operations were held by Western experts. In African schools, students were taught theory, not practice. They learned concepts, not control. It wasn't by accident, it was intentional. a system designed to keep Africa dependent. Now here's the truth. Not all foreign mining is bad. The problem is dependence, the failure to evolve beyond it. At this point in history, African nations should have invested in training, in technology, in building real capacity. They should have required foreign companies to build factories on African soil. That alone would have created jobs and transferred skills to the people. But now, the tide is turning. In the Sahel, military leaders are rewriting the rules. They're reclaiming control, and Guinea is following that lead. Revoking licenses isn't just about cleaning house. It's about sending a message. According to reports, this move is a signal to all mining companies: stick to the rules or leave. It's more than a legal action. It's a political statement. Guinea is making it clear. We want more than promises. We want results. And going forward, only those who bring real value will be allowed to stay. Simply put, Guinea is drawing a line in the sand. Every foreign company operating in the country has now been given a clear message: adapt to the new mining code or face the consequences. And honestly, every African country should do the same. For far too long, Africa has played the same role: supplier of cheap raw materials. Meanwhile, countries like the US, France, the UK, Australia, and Germany have used those resources to build empires, to power their industries, to create wealth. And Africa, left behind, underdeveloped, underpaid, undervalued. But now, that era may be ending. Across the continent, leaders are rising. Leaders like President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, who are beginning to say enough. Enough of the exploitation. Enough of the sweet-talking deals that benefit everyone but Africa. Because here's how it works. The moment news breaks that a new mineral is discovered in Africa, foreign interests swoop in. Diplomats, CEO, advisors, dressed in sharp suits, smiling, confident, persuasive. They approach the African leader like a suitor courting a bride. They pitch a deal. They'll fund the project. They'll provide the expertise. They'll take care of everything. All they ask in return is the resource. The president gets a cut. The people get peanuts. A few schools here, a broken road there, and a long list of promises that never arrive. Meanwhile, billions in gold, bauxite, oil, and rare earths are shipped abroad. This has been the cycle. But now, Africa is waking up. And Guinea's bold move might just be the beginning of the end. They always say the same thing: our investment will attract others. We'll create jobs. It'll boost your economy. But look around. Look at the mining sectors in nearly every African country. The truth is hard to ignore. African nations receive tiny royalties, while foreign companies walk away with millions in profit. And what's worse? The mining industry has consistently underperformed. It looks good on paper. Reports say it contributes to GDP, but the reality on the ground is completely different. Take Nigeria, for example, a country that has been exploiting oil for decades, yet only a select few have benefited: corrupt government officials, and of course, the foreign oil companies. Meanwhile, the people, they get nothing. For all those years, Nigeria didn't even have a functional public refinery. Crude oil had to be shipped abroad, just to be refined and bought back at higher prices. It wasn't until Aliko Dangote, the richest man in Africa, stepped in to build a private refinery that the country could finally claim a functioning facility. But even then, there's resistance. The same people who've benefited from a broken, corrupt system are now standing in the way, blocking progress, stalling capacity, protecting their cut. Because when exploitation becomes routine, reform becomes a threat. And that's exactly what's at stake. And this is exactly why African leaders must start saying no to easy access to African gold, uranium, diamonds, and cobalt. No to deals that hand over precious resources for pennies on the dollar. If a foreign company refuses to meet the conditions that benefit the people, revoke the license, send them packing. Now, of course, critics will ask, won't this scare away investors? Even the African Union's Peace and Security Council has raised concerns. They warn that resource nationalism could destabilize investment in West Africa. But let's be honest, what good is investment if the people never see the benefits? African countries have been attracting foreign direct investment since the 1960s. And yet, look around. Where is the transformation? Where is the infrastructure? Where is the wealth? The answer is clear. It never came, because the only ones who benefited were the foreign companies, not the children walking miles for clean water, not the communities living beside polluted rivers, not the workers in the mines, risking their lives for a wage that barely feeds a family. So no, keeping foreign investors comfortable should never come before African dignity. It's time to flip the script. Africa is not poor. Africa is being looted. And the leaders who dare to say no more might just be the ones who finally change the story. As we often say, it's insanity to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. African countries can't keep handing over their resources, letting foreign companies do as they please, and then wonder why development never comes. It's time for serious action, time to demand real cooperation, mutual benefit, equal terms, respect, because anything less is just more of the same. Now we'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know in the comments section below. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. The conversation starts here, but it doesn't end here.